So, Gus, are you on? A quick question.
Yeah,
Know, how do I know if people who are not on video want to ask a question? Is there some way that um, I have to see them to raise their hand?
I think they'll just have to interrupt. So
Okay,
if Angie, Jamie, Jaime, or Dave, and if they're on their phone dialed in, um, that'll be the method.
okay, that's fine, just so I
Okay,
know what the procedure is supposed to be. Thank you.
welcome.
Right, I've got 5:30. Let's call the meeting to order. It's Tuesday, April 7th. This is the Personnel and Policy Ad Hoc Committee. Um, Roll call. Fred Westcott, Dave Kelly,
Here.
John Butita,
Here.
Dorothy Red,
Here.
Angie Gorel, Joe Hoffman, I see Joe. Joe, can you hear me? Yeah, okay, gotcha.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum. We have first order of business is to approve the minutes of July 3rd, 31st, August 7th, 15th, 27th, October 1st, and November 6th of 2019. Can I have a motion? Motion by Mr. Kelly, second by Mr.
Dorothy Red.
and Ms. Red. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. Do we have anyone signed up for public comment?
No, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. We'll skip that. Okay, first order of business is the county administrator search update. Last night I had sent to everyone on the board the position profile that was put together by Workplace. I don't know if you've all had a chance to take a look at it. We have a little bit of we have a deadline here to get this done. Mr. Kelly, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, nice job of putting lipstick on a pig.
Would you like to elaborate on that? I mean, so our purpose here is to move this forward. Explain that comment so that we know where.
Okay. A nice job of trying to make our community and this opportunity, within quotes, look attractive. You know, and if anybody does, you know, we do have problems, and there's definitely problems right now with the pandemic and everything. And it's just, you know, it's an old expression I'm acquainted with, and, you know, trying to make a bad situation look good.
Right, I understand. But is there anything specific about the position profile that you object to?
No.
Okay, thank you. Has anyone else had a chance to look it over or care to comment on it? Mr. Butita?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I had a couple of things, Mr. Chairman. For Lorraine, I was wondering, under the compensation package, it had the salary and the initials DOE after it. I didn't understand what that meant. Could you explain that?
Certainly, it means dependent on experience.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I guess, you know, the elephant in the room is that is not addressed in the profiles, the chairman's position or responsibilities going forward. At least So I guess, from what I see, the chairman is mentioned in in your profile twice, once in the organizational chart, kind of left out there just with its only responsibility being the highway department. Second would be just a notation that the county chairman is a countywide elected position. So I guess my question to Lorraine would be that if I'm an applicant and I'd say I'm one of the final three that you're looking at, and if I pose the question to you that I've done my research on this position in the county, and I see that over the last 2 years you've changed the administrative responsibilities for the chairman and the administrator over the last 2 years, and I also see that going forward, the chairman is still going to be a countywide elected position, and the county board potentially could change a little bit in 2020 November election, potentially a lot more significantly in 2022 when all seats are up for election. What guarantee could you give me as an applicant that the position as you described in the profile will remain the same? And I think you know what I'm getting to, that what
Certainly.
can we tell, what are we telling people they're applying?
I think, Mr. Bucita, first and foremost, a candidate needs to understand that regardless of to whom they report and what the configuration of elected is, their knowledge and performance is what's going to determine the role they have within the organization and the stability they have. And we have tried very hard to write the profile so that any applicant will understand they need to come in ready to deliver and work collaboratively in any environment. And I think that especially those of us awake today in the COVID-19 environment, we don't know what tomorrow looks like. So one of the ambiguities that this candidate may face is what's going to be the configuration of the county in 20 and 22. But there are a lot bigger ambiguities as well. And we need somebody who's going to be comfortable performing their best where they are. May I answer anything else, Mr. Bucita?
No, I appreciate that comment. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anyone else have any feedback on what's been put together here? So would this be an indication that you feel that we're ready to move forward with it as it is? Mr. Bucita. Mr. Bucita and then Chairman Haney. Go ahead, Mr. Bucita.
Oh, okay. Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. So I'm prepared to move ahead. I think, selecting an administrator is an important task. But as you and I know from our previous conversations, we both would like to have the chairman's position defined for at the very least the next term. And although what we may disagree in how we what we see the final format being, we both agree that we need to move forward and solidify that. So I would like to see as and I would ask Lorraine's opinion on this. If we had if the county board does solidify what the chairman's responsibilities are going to be in the next term, wouldn't that make it easier for her to recruit somebody? And also, well, I guess I would leave it at that. I mean, we want to find the best candidate. If we solidify that chairman's responsibilities going forward into the next term, what is your opinion about that?
Well, if I may interject, our next agenda item is the ordinance. So they're two separate things. So I just want to keep that in mind. This is just about the position profile to get the search started. But Lorraine, did you have something else to interject?
Not too much more, Mr. Bucita, from what I said earlier. I feel that it's always important to take personalities and people out of things and let processes prevail. The scope of responsibility of this role is huge. I'm sure that Mr. Chapman would concur, and they have quite a bit to do. And if they are doing it well, they're going to have a collaborative, non-political relationship with all the invested parties.
Thank you. Chairman Haney, you had a question you'd like to ask?
Well, if the question is what was shared with us ready to go out, I guess, it's not my call, but my answer is no, is that I actually see the position, unless I looked at a different document than you all.
No.
I looked at a document that had the position of chairman back on the org chart, having the county engineer reporting to the chairman. No other positions, of course, reporting to the chairman, but I've been told that the county engineer doesn't report to me. I don't know, and for the record, for the 87th time, I really don't know where the position of chairman fits on the org chart. It's very simple going forward. You either want a chairman who is the chief elected of the administration, or you want a chairman who is the 21st member of the board that would vote like other board members. The no man's land position, and all I'm saying is what is before me was incorrect, respectfully, because I don't know that that's the case. Two is that if you get clear on what the future of it will be, everybody, including the community, is going to be able to buy into your next administrator and whomever your next chairman would be, because it's at this point, I don't know that lack of clarity around one brings about synergy on the other. It just makes everything harder.
Okay. To that point.
This is Carolyn. I'd like to say something.
Go ahead.
Okay, as legal counsel, you should not be discussing things that are part of pending litigation. And pending litigation includes the chairman's duties. So as legal counsel, I'm advising you not to discuss anything dealing with pending litigation.
Okay, thank you for that advice, and we will keep that in mind. We can discuss the duties of the administrator, though, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Logan, does that organizational chart have to be in this document?
Say it does not. It's probably preferable. I'm so sorry, everybody. Michael, I'd like you to weigh in on that as well, but I think it could be omitted. I think we've seen proposals where it's not.
Michael, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I would even say this is part of what we got from Steve. I think the roles that report to the county administrator are outlined elsewhere and in the position profile. So I don't know that the chart itself, other than candidates like to see things like that, it's not an essential part of the profile.
Okay, so Chairman Haney, if stuff is unsettled and there's going to be conversations moving forward, would you feel more comfortable if we remove that org chart?
Thank you, Mr. Arena. I would just say that it's not correct from my understanding. And we've been talking about this stuff for 3+ years and it's not clear. So I would just say that if it's unclear to me and somebody asked me that question, then I would very directly and publicly say that that's not how I understand it. So yeah, if that helps make life easier, sure.
Well, okay.
And I think it's a mistake perhaps to leave it in.
Okay. Yeah, so it was provided by Mr. Chapman. If it's incorrect, that's a separate issue that we need to fix. Our goal here is to get the search going, so let's do what we can to make that happen. So do we need to have a vote to remove it, or can we just, does anyone object to removing it? Okay. Ms. Logan, let's take it out.
We'll be happy to do that.
All right, Mr. Batita, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wonder if we just get an update from Workplace on where they're at on this process. Like, have we advertised it? Have we gotten applicants? Have we, and given the current circumstances of the virus, what is our expectations going forward to, a timeline, I guess, is what I'm looking at.
Certainly. It would be inappropriate for us to have posted anything or had any real meaningful conversations. So the answer to the first couple questions is no, nothing. Once we have agreement from this body and approval from this group, we will get it up right away. We are always being on the vigilance for possible candidates, but I wouldn't say we've started to officially develop a list by any means because we needed the clarification of this call. I do not expect today the global pandemic to impede the search substantially, but I think it would be naive to say that while people are mostly in shelter in place, it may slow it up somewhat. I think people are being very cautious about their physical exposure, but I think the first phase of the process is one in which it's really electronic. So I don't think there's going to be a great deal of impediment to applying. There might be an impediment to, do I want to move? But people typically don't face the cold hard fact of whether they're moving or not till a little later into the process. So I don't think we're going to have a ton of decline in interest yet. And part of why we, Mr. Kelly, why we wanted to make it very appealing is we want to get the value proposition out there.
Okay. So does anyone else have any ideas on this document before we move forward?
Mr. Chairman?
Wait, Mr. Chapman, do you have your hand up?
No, go ahead and go to Dave first.
Okay, go ahead.
This is Dave Kerlinkus. I just wanted to state, the state's attorney and I got this document at about 5:15 tonight, so we haven't even had a chance to look at it from a legal perspective. I don't know, Paul, you're talking about taking a vote tonight. I mean, this is actually going to have to be forwarded by the committee. You're a subcommittee. You can't make a recommendation to the board.
No, we make a recommendation to personnel and policy.
Yeah, but the other thing is, I would really like the opportunity to discuss this with State's Attorney Hyde Rossing, to at least give it a reading. We literally got it a half an hour ago. So
Okay,
we've not had a chance to look at it from any perspective at all.
Okay. So we could just reconvene this committee in a couple days and get your feedback then?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I yielded to the state's attorney whether she thought that was okay. Except we haven't had a chance to discuss this at all.
Okay. State Attorney Height Ross, would a couple days be sufficient?
That would be fine. Like I said, I didn't even know the document existed until about 20 minutes ago.
Okay. All right. That we won't take any final action on this item. We'll meet again in a couple of days to do that. Mr. Chapman, you had something to add?
No, the only thing I added, I did go through the document and I did make a couple of changes. They're more cosmetic than anything. So I did communicate those to Michael, and I think he was in concurrence with what I had suggested, but it's nothing significant.
Okay. All right. Mr. Kerlinkus, so so that we follow the proper procedure on this as an ad hoc committee, we would convene again and just hear your comments on it, and then one more opportunity for people to weigh in, and then we just make a recommendation by vote to the Personnel and Policy Committee of accepting this. Is that correct?
Correct. That would be the same procedure that you followed before when you were doing the interviews on this, which was, you know, you're an ad hoc. You're actually a subcommittee.
Right.
We call it ad hoc, but from a proper procedural perspective, you're a subcommittee of the Personnel and Policies Committee.
Okay, and then Personnel and Policy will vote to approve it or reject it, and then would this go to the full board then as a resolution to approve it?
Yes.
Okay. And so that would put us back another 2 weeks. Is it necessary for the full board to approve it?
I would highly recommend it. I mean, I don't know how you can go forward and make a determination at the committee level. The committees don't have the authority to bind the county. Only the county board does that.
It would be the same, Mr. Arena, just like when you determined which search firm to use to perform the search for the county administrator. Came out of committee, went before the full board, and the full board voted on which search agency to use.
Right. I'm just concerned about losing another 2 weeks when the clock is ticking. We only have extended Mr. Chapman until June. That time is going to fly by. Mr. Kelly?
Yeah, me too. All this thing is an advertisement for applications. You know, I don't see why this is being made such a big deal over.
Mr. Kelly, that is not the purview of a committee or a subcommittee. That is the county board's committee. That's county board's subject matter. You can't do that as a committee. Only the county board can give the go-ahead to go forward.
Is Personnel and Policy meeting before the county board meeting this week? Did they add that to the agenda?
No, they did not.
Okay. All right. And it's not possible to add, right? It's too late for them to have a meeting before the county board meeting.
Right, you would have had to post that today, Mr. Arena. This is Marilyn Height Ross speaking.
Right.
Because you need that 48 hours posting notice.
Okay. All right. Well, if does anyone else have any suggestion to facilitate moving this forward quicker? Mr. Haney?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Arena. Just two things I would just say for the record. Number one, I respectfully disagree with the state's attorney that we should never talk about the chairman's duties going forward. The dispute is about the past. Number two, when the board decided on a search firm, there was the discussion that the process would move forward. Direction was left purposely vague to give the firm room to move forward. It was never said that we would have to come back to the county board to even finalize the agreement. In fact, specifically, I think it was said, we'll let Chapman finalize and sign off on the agreement to get this thing moving. And I guess my point is, I don't think the advice by Mr. Kurlinkus is technically wrong. You could take it back to the board, but I don't think the spirit of the discussion I heard, and this is not my call, I don't think the spirit of the discussion I heard on the board floor that night meant that nothing could happen unless it goes to the board on each and every step in this process. That doesn't mean that taking it back to the board would be wrong, but I didn't understand it to be that way. So I would have thought that a number of things would happen without board approval, but under the general umbrella of the board's initial approval, respectfully.
Right. And I seem to recall that we also put this in Mr. Chapman's hands. And if there's any way possible for us to just get this going, we should, because we are under a time crunch. It really needs to get moved forward. So if we could look back at maybe the conversation on when we approved workplace, if it was put at Mr. Chapman's discretion, then we can, allow him to give final approval to this document.
This is Dorothy Red. I have a question or comment. Can you
Okay,
hear me?
yes, I can. Please go ahead, Ms. Red.
Is it possible that we can, give the notice for the meeting again, maybe early next week, and then have a special board meeting?
Chairman Haney, you want to answer that question?
If that's what, thank you, Mr. Arena. I'm willing to work with this group or the Personnel and Policy Committee as you see fit. So I'm not gonna, if asked to put on a special meeting, I'm not gonna not put it on the agenda. What I would also say, there is something, quite frankly, as important as this that's been held up, that was brought to the board's attention and staff's attention in early March, and that is the NICDC Small Business Emergency Loan. And that is not, for reasons I can't explain, it's not on the board agenda for this Thursday. I don't even know how I answer that question back to the community, why it's not before the board for a vote. It is the board's call. But if we're going to do something along this line, then I wouldn't feel comfortable in good conscience not putting that other item on for board action up or down, so we can move on and give a definitive answer to our partners.
Okay, well, I think that's your discretion on that item, Chairman Haney. And, whatever you choose to do on that is fine. So I guess at this point, we'll just have to, Mr. Kurlinkus, you were trying to say something earlier. Did you have something else to add?
Only the fact that the authorization giving Mr. Chapman the ability to go through and make a contract on this certainly didn't include the approval of the documentation that went out. That was part of the, many of us were interviewed individually by the workplace, and then we really we're grateful for that opportunity, but that wasn't part of the contract that Mr. Chapman was supposed to approve. The document that's going out is going to be, that is the county, as Mr. Kelly pointed out. I mean, whatever people take from it, that's it. And I strongly recommend that the county board, first of all, the Personnel and Policies Committee, and then the county board take a look at this rather than just going through the subcommittee and saying, okay, it's fine, let's go.
Okay, all right. Well, Chairman Haney did say that there's a possibility of having a special board meeting. So it looks like we have a method to get it taken care of. Mr. Chapman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No disrespect to Dave and to Marilyn, but I did locate here in my file the agreement that we have with Workplace as far as the search and recruitment, and as part of step one, it does indicate that the position profile shall be reviewed and approved by the interim Winnebago County Administrator. So there's really nothing in the agreement that indicates that it has to go back through the board. I'm in agreement if the the state's attorney's office wants to review it and so on, but I think we can go forward based on the agreement that we have with Workplace.
Okay, well, Mr. Chapman, why don't you get together with the state's attorney's office?
I will.
Just go over your notes and see if we can find a way to move this forward as quickly as possible. That would be in all our best interest.
I agree.
Mr. Hoffman.
Yes, thanks, Chairman. I was wondering if you could send a copy of that letter. I don't seem to recall seeing it. Could you just send it another copy to me?
I'm sorry, what?
The letter in question that you
you
guys
didn't get it last night?
Yeah, I didn't see it. So can you resend it?
Yes, I'll send it right after we get done with this meeting.
Thank you.
Okay. So on this item, Mr. Chapman is going to connect with the state's attorney's office, see if there's a way to just get it approved based on his review. And if not, we'll circle back with Chairman Haney and see if we can get it on the agenda for a special board meeting next week. Is there any other discussion on this agenda item? Okay, hearing none. We'll move on to the second agenda item, which is the administrator duties, the ordinance covering the administrator. There was some items in there that were discussed for possible cleanup. I had some conversations with a few board members. Chairman Haney and I spoke over the weekend about it. And I've talked to Mr. Kurlinkus. I think at this point, again, for the purpose of getting things moved forward, I would like to not open that up right now myself. But obviously, it's a board decision. I'd like to hear from all of you. Do you feel it's absolutely necessary at this point in time to start reviewing the duties of the administrator? Can we move forward with the search without taking care of that first? It can happen at a later date. Anybody? Mr. Vitita.
I would agree. I would agree with you, Mr. Chairman. I don't see the need to do that right now. To move ahead with the search is more important.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else want to weigh in on that point?
I'd agree.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Okay. No other comments on that item? Mr. Chapman?
I would agree with you also.
All right, great. Thank you. Okay, I believe that was it for our agenda. So, Mr. Kurlinkus, do you think under the conversation we had about the position profile, is it necessary for me to adjourn to a future date, or is that necessary at this point?
Well, based upon what, excuse me, that's a clock in the background there. Based upon what Mr. Chapman read from the agreement, the letter agreement, I think we can probably take care, subject to the state's attorney's thoughts on this. I think we can probably take care of that in a conversation with Mr. Chapman.
Okay, great. Are there any other matters to bring before this committee? Okay, hearing none, can I have a motion to adjourn? Motion by Mr. Butita, second by Mr. Hoffman. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.